Hello everybody. I've been a long-time fan of the Uncharted series, the video game series, so I decided to try my hand at recreating Drake's journal from the second game, Among Thieves. The first things I need to do is find the right book. So I decided to use a Moleskine book, the sketchbook. Make sure it's a sketchbook, it has thicker pages, it's better suited for illustrations. I happen to use one that was 5 1/4 by 8 1/4 inches, but you can use any size you want. The inserts inside the book seem to scale to different properties, so there's really no real or correct scale for the book, but just whatever you feel suits your needs. So I decided to go with this one. Now, one of the first things you need to do is color the cover of the book. What I basically did was used acrylic. Acrylic is good for coloring on leather and fabrics. So I basically took some acrylic, put it in a bowl, and I mixed it with some water. You need some water in order to thin it down, or else if it dries without water on the page, it'll tend to crack since the page is kind of flexible. So I used 2 or 3 coats, and I use a sponge like this to dab it on. What I basically do is let it dry, then I add a second coat, let that dry, and add a third coat, and so on. So I basically added about 4 coats. One thing you also may need to do is mask off the actual pages in the book by inserting a page here, because you don't want to get you don't want to get acrylic paint on the actual pages on the inside of the book. So that's basically what I did. I started with the front cover, then I did the spine and the back. The next thing you want to do is weather the cover. I weathered the cover by just taking some fine sandpaper and just going over it, which gives it that slight texture, that worn texture, so it looks like it's been through quite a bit. After that, you want to work on weathering the actual pages. What I basically did is I took some sepia colored ink and I put it inside an atomizer. You can find an atomizer at any art store, but I happen to have a Febreze bottle here, so I just use that. And I basically put sepia colored ink used for calligraphy. You can find it at any art store. Put it in here and mix it with about 3 or 4 parts water. And once it's mixed up, I sprayed it on a paper towel and then dabbed it on or smeared it, depending on what you want, until I got the pages to look like this. So pretty much most of the pages in the book are weathered, as you can see here. So the next thing I needed to do was screen captures for the images. Now you can go online and find the screen captures for these images, but a lot of them aren't high resolution, so I had to actually use the video game. And luckily I have a pretty large TV, HD TV, so I was able to take pictures of the screen captures right from the TV. So I basically just brought those into Photoshop so I could look at them while recreating pages. Now the first thing here, aside from the screen caps, I also needed help with the research. So one of the best places to go to is the RPF, the Replica Props Forum, which I'm a member of. And a lot of the members there are helpful. They already had a thread going from other people who started their own journals. One of these other people is D Jedi, who also has a YouTube video on his journal. If you do a search, you'll be able to find that. And Creed Pops, who also did some of the artwork, and several other members who contributed to the research on the book. Now, when I first started these pages, I worked on this page first, which I basically eyeballed the positioning of all the elements, which it came out okay, but I wanted to be exact. So after this page, I decided to use a different technique. What I basically did was I would print out a black and white from the screen caps I had in Photoshop, which basically looked like this. I made sure the page was scaled to the same scale as the journal page. Once I had this, I would flip it over, and on the back, I would color in the back with just a regular pencil. Basically like this. And I had to make sure I got the entire area where the image appeared. Once I had that, I would flip the paper back over, I would place it on top of the journal page, I would tape it down, and then I would just simply, let's pretend this is the journal page, I would simply trace over the artwork that's on the printout, and the end result would be a transfer of the actual artwork. As you can see, the little illustration I just did now transferred right onto the page. So that's basically what I did on the journal in order to get it to transfer on here, so it could give me a perfect positioning of where everything should go. These printouts were basically used from the screen caps, which I cleaned up in Photoshop and tightened them up, printed them out on photo paper, and then I just taped them on here. The coin was created with Sculpey. What I basically did, created in Sculpey, I baked it in the oven for a few minutes, and it was basically done. I then used gold leaf and applied the gold leaf on to give it that gold look, and simply taped it on. The flowers are a bit of a pain in the butt. These, there's no way I could find these exact flowers, so I basically created these from tissue paper, and the stems were created from raffia. You can find those at any art store. The positioning of the lettering and everything was done with the same technique, that same technique I just showed you. I also mixed and matched the mediums that Drake uses in these papers in his drawings. Some pages have brown pencil, some have brown ink, some have black ink. Some were done with brush, some were done with marker, so I just give it that mix match look. In this case, this was done in brown pencil. More pictures from the screen caps, which I tightened up and printed out, and then I went over them with marker to give Sully his mustache and his cigars and his expressions. Stapling the images to the paper, I didn't actually staple it on, because if you were to staple these onto the page, the opposite side of the staple would appear here. So what I basically did was I just stapled the photograph to itself, not to the page, and then I just took double-sided tape and put it on the back and just attached it on there, so it gives the illusion that it's stapled on.